That's a big step for a lot of people. You're talking about someone that has given you no reason to trust them. So there's a model for increasing transitional housing that has been tried in a few cities. And that is taking advantage of unused living space in people's homes. That's a big step for a lot of people. You're talking about someone that has given you no reason to trust them. You're probably talking about someone with a felony in their past, or multiple histories of eviction, or a person with addictions, and all of those things are can make an ordinary person who's been living a very conventional and uneventful life pretty nervous about allowing someone into their home. So what I did was I talked to the executive directors of the In-Between and Safe Shelter, who are two providers of transitional housing in Longmont. So the right thing to do is say, I'll provide more sleeping space, I'll share my kitchen, I'll do all of that stuff, and you extend the case manager to someone coming almost ready to come out. So I'll have the additional security of making sure that that person has a case manager, and I don't have to deal with the problems that I'm really not trained to deal with. My idea was, yeah, I'll just be the landlady. And that was a good idea, except that they didn't have any extra case management hours. And I met a woman on Facebook, actually, who was posting that she was going to be was living with a roommate. The roommate held the lease. The roommate was losing the lease, and she had 3 days notice or she was going to be on the street. She has an 11-year-old daughter, older than that now, but at the time she had an 11-year-old daughter. And that means that if she ended up on the street, as soon as she was noticed by the authorities, she would lose custody of her daughter. So I said, okay, this is the one. And I messaged her through Facebook and said, I have this room that you can live in. I had been advised to charge something because there's a psychological profile that says you do better if you're charging rent than if you're not charging rent. So I charged $50 a week. This woman, I'm not going to use names, but she had a job, not enough really to do very well renting in Longmont by herself. But she had a job, and she figured that if she could get the 50 cent an hour raise, that she could afford both an apartment and a used car. So she lived with me for 9 months, paying $50 a week rent, and that meant that she could save a lot of money toward a security deposit and a car. And she did. And she didn't lose her daughter, although they lived together in one room. My upstairs bedroom was big. There was room for a fold-out couch and a bed, and there was a loft where the little girl could do her homework and play and all that kind of stuff. So they really had a pretty good life, and they were good tenants. They didn't make messes in my kitchen. We cleaned out cupboards for them to use and shelves on the refrigerator for them to use, and they stayed in their stuff, and they didn't leave mildewy clothes in my washing machine, and it was, all the things that tenants will do if you're not careful. They didn't do any of those things, and it was just wonderful. In August, she told me that she had found an apartment and a car and did a good job of moving out, and had friends by then that would help her move out, and it just worked. I never had to call Safe Shelter, who was agency that had done the background check on her for help. What do I do now? That never happened. So it's something that I would encourage people to do. If you really want to give back to your community, that's one way to do it. But it's not a long-term solution. We shouldn't have to be asking that of people. I was quite nervous at the beginning.
What did you know about her?
Nothing. I found out, what I knew was that she had passed Safe Shelter's background check. They had conducted several interviews with her, and they said that she had a good relationship with her daughter, which she did, and that she was very motivated to get her life back on track, and that she loved living in Colorado. She'd actually moved state to state to get away from an abusive relationship. So those were the things I knew, and that was it.